Hi and welcome. My name is Hans Erickson, and today I'd like to talk about an issue that I think is extremely important in look development and lighting, and I kind of consider it a hot topic, and that is on texel density. Now that may sound a little on the boring side, but I think it's highly relevant. Uh, and I call it a hot topic, but I find that it may be more of a hot issue than it is a topic. Uh, when I started looking a little bit more into it, I found a few things on the websites about it, but not a tremendous amount. And in my school, and I'm presently at Missouri State University. I'm a senior in the animation department, and quite frankly, I don't ever remember it even being discussed at all. And yet, I find it, extremely important. And I think the importance can be seen within this IPR render that I've got going on right now, because there is a problem with it. And I think it's pretty relevant. Now, this isn't a really high quality render. It's an IPR. I'm only doing a 1K render with only 16 samples, but it kind of gets the point across. If you kind of look at the desk drawer here, I got a fair amount of information here. You can see the grains of the wood fairly well, but as soon as we get over to the body here, it's a little bit on the washed out side. You really don't see the grains as well as you should. If I kind of zoom in here a little bit, and let me kind of get a little closer to it, you can see just dramatically, you can see the grains coming through here a lot better, but as soon as we get over to the body, it's like it's cut from two different trees. It's not even this, and yet it's the same texture. Well, what's the problem? I'm running both of these in a all of the assets here. The drawers are different parts of the asset. The top is a different part. The legs are a different part. The knobs are a different part. And they all have their own individual, UVs, and all of the UVs are 1K UVs. So I would expect it all to be correct, and yet it's not. And I did it all through Substance Painter. But there is a problem, and I really need to know what the problem is. How can I make this asset look better? How can I make the grains of wood look the same from here to here? And all of this has to do with texel density. And like I say, it's a topic that really isn't discussed enough. And I think part of the reason is the type of school that I'm going to. Now, and I found that over the years that there are really two different types of schools when it comes to animation. One is what I call a button-pushing school. You go to this school and they teach you all the bells and whistles in how to do a lot of special effects, and they really delve deep into the software that you may be using and all of the aspects of that software and how to produce every effect and everything within that software. And I think that's great. I think those issues are extremely important, particularly when you're trying to do high quality assets and whatever. But the other type of school, though, is an art school, and I think an art school really has more to do with, I'd say, storytelling, and look development. in an art school, you'll kind of start with a concept, and then from a concept you may go into the story, and then from there to a script, and then from there it'll develop into a shot board, into a storyboard where you begin to design how should this scene look to tell the story that you're trying to tell. How should the assets be positioned? How should the cameras be lined up? And all of it has to go back and relate to the story. How should everything look? What kind of texture should you use? The colors has a lot to do with eye movement and how all of this, equates. And for that reason, I'm very glad in where I'm going to an art school, because that is my main focus. That is what I want to learn more than anything else. And as far as the bells and whistles and what buttons to push to put all this together, in an art school they generally teach the basics, and maybe even a little bit beyond the basics. But quite frankly, there just isn't enough time to go into all of the aspects of the software that you're using. So it's really dependent that in an art school that you kind of have to rely on yourself to learn a lot of this stuff. And thankfully, there's a lot of resources out in the in the world where you can kind of independently learn this stuff. I do have the ability to go to my instructors and ask my instructors, well, how can I improve this and what can I do? And they generally know, but they don't have time to pack all of that information into all of the classes. And so that's the difference. And I think for that reason, a lot of the discussion on texel density is just lost. And unfortunately, I think it's a topic that should be covered as part of the curriculum, but maybe that'll come to pass at a later time. But I want to know what is wrong with this asset. What is happening here? And like I say, it has a lot to do with the issue of texel density. Well, first of all, what is a texel? I understand pixels in this render here. I know that I'm running a 1K render, so I know that it has 960 pixels going across and 540 pixels going down. If it was a 2K render, of course, it'd be 1980 by 1020, so I know that it would be a higher resolution render, but it is all represented in pixels. Pixels is they're little tiny squares that are that are represented by a color or some sort of color information, whether it's black and white or actual color, and they are all composited and put together into a screen. But what is a texel? Well, a texel is the smallest unit of information that makes up a texture. And so now comes the question is, well, how big is a texel? And what has that got to do with what I'm doing here? Well, fortunately, there are some sites out there, and I'm not going to really go into that a tremendous amount because there are sites out there that explain that a whole lot better than I do. So let me bring one of those up here. I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to come over here, and this site here, which I highly recommend that people get into read, on texel density, All You Need to Know, by Leonardo Iz. His last name is spelled Iezzi. I'm really going to botch it up, but I'll put this, I'll post this so that you can find this, but highly informative and something that I really recommend that everybody read. And he says that pixels are the smallest information that makes up a screen or a picture in other words, a rasterized image, whereas texels are the smallest amount of information that makes up a texture. And that's important because that is how the software relates the information that is on a texture to and how it's read. It reads everything as texels, not pixels. And so as it's looking at a texture, it determines the texels, and then it says, well, how many pixels are in each unit? How many pixels are represented in each texel? Now, how to determine that is a little bit convoluted. You have to know the size of the texture, a 1K texture here, how many centimeters is it, and then of your asset that you're trying to cover within this texel, within this texture, and that'll give you the pixels per centimeter that is represented within the texture here. So, basically, if you're running a 1K texture and you completely fill that UV, you map that UV to the entire map size, you're going to get 10.24 pixels per centimeter, which is actually pretty high, pretty good. But if you're running that in a 2K texture, you only really need to represent that in a quarter of it. So there's a lot of calculations that has to go into determining the pixel per centimeter that you're that everything's reading. So that's an awful lot of work to do, and quite frankly, it's software makes it a little bit easier to determine that. And let's take a look at this asset here and the problems that I was having with it. So if I go to the UV editor, and this is available in Maya, and it's also available in Blender too, and I'll show you how to get that available in Blender. But if I grab, let's say, my desk drawer here, I'll go with my center drawer. And I got my UV editor open here. And if I go to the Translate tab in the tools here, and I kind of scroll down, I'm running a map size of 2K. And why is that not show? I'm not clicking on the right thing. There we go. Let's go to the center drawer. And here's my UV layout. It's on a 1K map. And if I click Get, you'll see that I'm getting my texel density, pixels per unit, which is right now being looked at as centimeters. I am getting 7.5 centimeters, or 7.5 pixels per centimeter of information from my UV that is read into each centimeter of space here within my UVs. If I go to my right drawer, I'm getting 14. There's a difference, a big difference. If I go to my left drawer, I'm getting 16. If I go to my legs, my rear legs, I'm getting 14. My front legs are getting 12. My body, I'm getting, wow, 1.5 pixels per centimeter. Now you can see I really scaled this down because I'm playing with this to kind of represent the problem, but I think you can see the problem. I'm not getting as much pixel information from my texture, which is being read as texels within the software, and so I'm not getting that much information, which means a lot of my information within my UV is being lost. My top, I'm getting 3. In my knobs, I'm getting, whoa, 235 pixels. That is a total waste. And all my maps are exactly the same size, but you can see that the difference is astounding. And I really need to correct that. So what I really need to determine is, according to my UV map, how much do I need to scale my UV map to the UV map size to get an acceptable pixel per centimeters to even out my my textures within the scene, and to make my asset look correct. And this is important because I want to run the lowest map size and yet get the best resolution that I possibly can get. This will make my renders work faster. In gaming, it's extremely important, but I want my renders to run as clear as possible. I want my asset to look the best as possible, and I want to stay within a certain range of pixels per centimeter. Well, what should that be? Well, if I go back to this website here, he's come up with a solution, and this particularly deals with games, that for very close objects, such as, and he's relating this to a first-person shooter, you should be running about 10 pixels per centimeter concentration within your UV mapping. Whereas objects that are near, but you're not, like right up close to it, 5 is acceptable. Whereas objects that are very, very far away, 1.25 to 2.5 is perfectly fine. Now, in gaming, that may be acceptable, but I think in film, I kind of like to up that a little bit. And so in film, I like to kind of keep things around that 10 range. Now, if I'm dealing with something that's extremely far away, I may go ahead and run it down to about half that, but I try to stay within that 10 pixels per centimeter range to kind of get the best clarity as possible. So let's take a look at another asset. Well, actually, it's the same asset, but I kind of redid it. And so I'm going to open up. Well, let me do one other thing here. Let me just show you this difference here real quick. What I've done is I've taken this this asset and I put a checkerboard texture to it. And so I'm going to assign that material. And you can instantly see, just how bad that all is, how uneven all my textures are. And that is not something that should be done. My body, there you can see, is just terrible. My top is probably a little better, but again, it's not good. My knobs are just way too much information per, a 1K map for these little knobs is just overkill. The drawers are actually fairly good, but you can even see that if you look at this drawer to this drawer, although the drawers are basically the same size, they're uneven. And the same way with this here. So it's just not a good solution. So let's open up my second attempt here, and let's do a real quick render, and I'm going to again do an IPR render. So let me kind of open this up here. Well, let me move this, take this, and now I'm going to move this off to the side here and pop that open there, and I'm going to start an IP render on this one, and instantly we can see the difference, how much better it is. This here. The drawer seems to match with the body there. The top is looking very, very good. I go to the side here and nothing's washed out. The back is, you can see a lot of the grain of the wood there. The legs, everything looks like it's kind of cut from the same piece of wood. And that's what I was trying to achieve. So, I find this, a lot more acceptable. So I'm going to kind of kill this, and let's take a look at the differences that I made. If I open up my asset here, and if I go to my drawer, I'm going to open up. Now, I did a couple things. I took my knobs and I combined them into one object instead of making them separate. So the UV mapping is all on these separate objects here. My top here, my body, my legs, I combined my legs, so the front legs and the back legs are all on the same UV map. My drawers are all on different maps. So I've decreased the amount of maps that I have. But the other thing I did is I played with the map sizes. Now, if I look at my drawer here and I run this in a 1K map, let me go ahead and you see now I'm running at about 10.9. If I look at my center here, the drawer, I'm running at 10.2. Very, very close. I'm running within that acceptable range. If I look at my left drawer, again, I'm running at 10.2, so these two drawers are about the same. My legs, which I've combined, they're a little less, but still within that acceptable range. 9.5, good enough. My desk body here, if I run a 1K map, you can see I'm running too low. I need to up that. So on my body here, I need to run that. Let's say 2048. I need to run the map size up a little bit, and there I'm a little bit higher than what I would like to be, but still within that 10-point range. If I wanted to, I could reduce the UV size here a little bit to get a little closer to 10 to kind of match everything else. My top here on a 2K map, again, I'm running right within that 10 range. And my knobs, if I run that in a 2K map, you'd see I'm running way too high. But if I took it all the way down to 128, boom, I'm right at 11. And so everything's running in that, let's say, 10 to 11 range, or actually 9.5 to 11 range, which to me is pretty acceptable. I think you can see within, what I did there, it all looks pretty even and pretty good. If I go ahead and put that same checkerboard pattern on it, let me grab all of the assets there, and I assign that material. You can see that looking at it as a checkerboard, it all looks pretty even. Everything looks about the same. The difference, of course, being on my knobs, but that isn't presenting a huge problem to me, particularly since there isn't a lot of detail information within that, because it's actually just a metal texture. So the clarity of detail is important when relating it to the rest of the object. And I produced all these maps within Substance Painter. You can see that my body here, I've made these into 2K maps, whereas my desk drawer, I'm putting those out as 1K. I like Painter because I can go through and I can put these all out in different texture map sizes. And my knobs here, I got that running at a 128. And my legs and a 1K, and my top as a 2K. So I was able to put out all of these texture maps in a an even and cohesive manner. And so I think you can see the importance of getting your texel density, or some people like to look at it as pixel density. It's important that you spend a little time in figuring out just how to determine your map size and also your UV layout within that map to get everything within the same density. So not only are you getting enough information or texture information within your asset, but you're not overloading yourself and you're getting the correct UV map sizes for your asset. So I kind of hope you find this all informational. I forgot. I had told you all that Blender users also can get that very same information if you, and I'll add this to my information here. You can get an add-on for Blender that will do the same, basically the same thing that I was able to get with Maya for your Blender users that don't have access to Maya, in determining correct map sizes and getting your texel density or pixel per centimeter information that you need for good clarity and good map sizing. And it's free. You can just pick it up from Gumroad here. And I installed that on Blender and it works extremely well. So I hope you found this this discussion fairly informative, and I hope you find it useful in your projects, particularly in getting good look development. So until again, you have a great day.